Welcome to the Berks Homes Podcast, the business of building homes. I'm Katie. I'm here with my brother Ben, and today we are going to talk about 2024. It's all about the slot schedule and the culture. So, Ben, let's talk about the slot schedule.
Slot schedule.
Yes.
Yeah, big push this year. So we finally have put into words and kind of captured the essence of how to train on the slot schedule. The slot schedule, as we know it, is basically the backbone of our production. And it involves all aspects of the company: financial, production, sales, everybody, settlements, how we operate, basically. Mm-hmm. And it's really just defining what is a limited number of schedules, slots that are available to us in a region per month, in a community per month. And so if we have our budget, which we have established already for the business plan for the year, we can start to break it down by community and, basically to the house level. Mm-hmm. And so as you can imagine, we only have a certain level of capacity in each region and each community with trades, management, all of that stuff. And so we have to be disciplined. And so you're given, based off of the business plan, a certain number of slots, and you have to sell to those slots because each home, as we've predefined, has a schedule ahead of time. The amount of days that it takes to build the home and also get the home ready to be built. So the pre-construction timeline. So there's going to be a lot more education this year around it. And, that's going to be part of, I think, some of my role. This is part of one of my rocks in this coming quarter with trying to build that slot schedule, trying to fill that, because we need to establish a 60-day sales backlog.
And that's going to be where my rock comes in, helping to come up with the program and the plan to get that backlog. Right. And the importance of the backlog is to give us that flexibility to be consistent. It sounds kind of like contradictory, flexibility to be consistent, but it allows us to make the best deals at the right time to give the best customer service along the way with the best product at the same time. We're not rushing anything. We are not compromising our timelines. We're not compromising our profitability. If we have a guaranteed number of sales ahead of us, we will be able to be more, strategic about what homes we sell when. And so we are going to make that big push the first 6 months of the year. And along with the slot schedule strategy is going to be a selling strategy to complement it. Right. So just like we looked at capacity to create the slots, per community, per lot, we're going to be doing the exact same strategy for sales. Yeah. So can we oversell, not start, but just fill subsequent slots 60, 90 days out, knowing that and full disclosure to the customer, putting it on the contract, and create that sense of urgency for each community to say, this community is so popular, we are built out until this date. So you can certainly buy this home. We are excited for you, but there's such high demand that it actually won't settle until 4 months from when they would typically think, because the slot is filled. So we're overselling, but not overstarting. Yeah. So it's going to keep that discipline, but allow us to not have to thread the needle, as Mike says all the time.
Yeah. Just-in-time inventory. Yeah.
You are trying to eliminate that. If we sell a home, we have to start it in 65 days. We want to give ourselves that cushion to say, because things happen sometimes.
Things shift.
Yeah.
Well, and I think everybody's wondering why. I think it's because of that dynamic that the post-COVID market dictated. And it was really easy to, I don't want to say be lazy, but we could fill those future slots and the ones in between with specs, knowing that, okay, it's going to be super easy to sell specs, and that is an addiction that you don't want to get used to.
Yeah, we got to get off the spec gravy train because it is no longer a gravy train.
Yeah.
We have to be a little more, get through our spec inventory and get back to our regularly scheduled programming of pre-selling homes.
Pre-selling homes, yeah. So it's good business sense, but it's also like an opportunity for us to highlight how important that slot schedule is.
Yeah.
It's saying it's not something that you just do haphazardly. You plan. This allows us to execute a strategic plan of how to get through each community in a, kind of measured way.
Exactly.
Over time.
And it impacts every single role in the entire organization from start to finish. And that's segueing into the second part of 2024 is that alignment. So understanding how your role in the organization impacts our basic business strategy of the slot schedule and making sure we are all aligned in making that happen. Mm-hmm. Understanding, like as we've gone in the past couple of years, we've achieved clarity on a number of positions and roles and functions. And this year we get to kind of put that more into action.
Yeah, practice the repeatable tasks and accountabilities for each position that we've been figuring out on the fly over the last few years.
Right.
And so now, is this our third year in EOS?
May of 2022.
Okay, so it's like 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think it's all part of that process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, and when you have a big ship like we do, I mean, not super big, but big enough that you can't make changes overnight.
Right.
You're trying to not just change and implement change, you're also trying to have it be the new normal.
Yeah.
You're trying to make that's what we're doing. And so it's just been such a crazy, like I would say 3 years, since there was COVID and then really like post-COVID of 21.
Yeah.
And when we started our 10-year vision, our 10-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
So not only are we just trying to accomplish the here and now and today, but everything that we do from a strategic standpoint is looking towards that growth.
Right. That 1 year, that 3 year, that 10.
Yeah. And so it's been, to some, probably really inconsistent and just change.
Oh, it does feel like that sometimes.
Like from our standpoint, it's all like we have maybe perhaps a little bit of the bigger picture, and we see that a lot of that stuff's like just absolutely necessary, and so we just have to keep doing it. But to some that aren't privy to all the conversations, it's just like, what are we doing?
What are they doing now?
Yeah. So it's like accomplish what we need to now, but also make it so it can be the same at this level of production too.
Yeah. And
there's that.
And a part of that culture and alignment is the communication.
Right.
So what haven't we been saying that will make it clearer for everyone to understand why we're making changes?
Yeah.
Maybe talking about the change ahead of time, giving context, giving the, return on investment. When we change this will be the positive result. So this is why. Show the win that we're getting by making the change instead of it just feeling like we're aimlessly changing direction. Because if it feels like that, we've lost, because that is not what's happening at all. It's very, very strategic, very thought out, very well planned. And we should be able to put words to that in a way that everybody will.
The light bulb goes off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody desires consistency more than we do.
Right.
You want to, you're like churning and trying to figure out exactly how you can get it smooth. Mm-hmm. That's the goal.
Exactly.
Not to just do something, let it go for a while, knowing we're going to change it again. No, we don't. That's not the goal.
Well, we are not reactive people.
Mm-mm.
We are not a reactive organization. I mean, caveat that we're very reactive to the market and very innovative on that side. But as far as just reacting to, oh, there was a problem, let's change process. No, it's not like that. It's more proactive, looking at the solve for the long-term win, across the board for everything. And with that being said, we still have changes to make, and we're in the midst of a lot of change to reach that plateau of stability.
Yeah.
Because we have clarity of what needs to happen to reach our goals. So
we have that all over the organization. New title or something.
Yes.
New position that was created to solve, a specific set of problems. And it's all intertwined with, not just that new position and the accountabilities that go with it. It's also with the person in that position that maybe created a path for themselves to get to there.
Right.
And then it's that you have an idea, you have a job description, and then there's the actual where you're like, okay, we're 80% good, but the other 20% that we thought was part of that job title or job description, we need to rework that. And then that's kind of this year, right?
Yes.
It's like, are there going to be new positions until the end of time? Yes. But in terms of the total amount of new positions, I think, as a percentage goes down.
Yeah.
And this year, with some of the changes that we either have implemented recently or will be implementing very soon, it allows just a lot more clarity in each department.
Yes.
And focus and just tightening up of those things that people are accountable for in their role.
Yes. And the end goal always being, how do we support the regional efforts? So if we have the correct structure within the home office with the correct supporting roles, then we will be able to help facilitate the regions. What do they need? What training do they need? What tools do they need? What processes do they need to become more efficient? Because that's our business.
And they will have a lot of clarity around, who to go to, how to
Yes.
solve problems at the region with quick, easy support from the home office.
Right.
It's not like I have this problem, I'm going to copy 7 people from the home office, hoping
Somebody.
one of them throws out a life jacket.
Right.
And I think...
Yeah, that's this year.
Yeah, I see that being, clarified. Clarity.
Yes.
And consistency. And ultimately, it's just, you use the word alignment. And I think that is really the overarching goal that, we're all marching towards the same thing. And individually, we know how we
Contribute.
that thing happen.
You got it.
And so we have our quarterly EOS meeting on Monday.
Correct.
That's always exciting for the first one of the year because you kind of look back, you take some time to look back over the previous year, the strategy that we had at the time. You always it's kind of like budget versus actual.
Yeah.
What was the strategy? Not necessarily about the numbers, but what were the things that we were trying to accomplish? How did we do? And then using those lessons to adjust expectations for the next year. And we're, of course, anchored by our 10-year commitment, our 10-year goal. And I get energy out of not necessarily sitting in a room for 8 hours, but the content that comes out of it and a renewed sense of, like I said, clarity on what we're trying to accomplish in this fiscal year, knowing that the big picture is always there.
Right.
And you have to adjust even within a calendar year, of course. But I feel really good about the progress that we made through the budgeting process.
Yes.
Knowing, it was not perfect. We would all agree. But it was a test on how, our new accounting software and all that stuff. It was more like, let's just muscle through so we can do it really well next year. And we have enough people that are really savvy to fill in the missing pieces that the budgeting process didn't, account for.
That's kind of a good illustration of where we're at in all areas right now. We saw what needed to be done last year, muscled through. This year is the testing, practicing, refining, so that by the end of 2024, we should be really solid across the board with all of our processes, tools, techniques to, again, get efficient at the regional level and sell and build homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of the end game of this year by saying slot schedule, alignment, communication, training. That means for our next big jump, again, shooting for that 10-year goal, we will have the foundation that we need to jump to the next level.
Yeah. There's no, oh, shoot,
we missed something.
We needed this, and it was actually 6 months ago that we needed it, and now we're rushing. And what happens when you rush?
Oh, yeah.
You make a bad decision or not. You don't have all the information. I think one of the things that I always get out of that quarterly meeting is more, understanding the mindset of the other people in our executive team and how am I going to, fit in with their strategies, right?
Right.
And how can I support them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you like about it?
I really like seeing kind of what you're saying, getting in, we all kind of get in each other's heads and understand what underlying projects and what kind of side goals everyone has. And sometimes there's an overlap, and sometimes there's a way for someone to say, oh, you're working on that? I think that should be yours. Okay, so now I don't even have to think about it.
I'll support you.
Yeah, whatever you need, I'll help you get there. But now that burden of thought is not in my head anymore. I really like that. And it also always gives me a topic that I want to go take back to my team. So after, our all day quarterly meeting, I always have mine all day with my department. And there's usually a new tool that I introduce or a kind of review of something. So we always go over the 5 leadership and 5 manager abilities together as a reminder. It's the first thing every time. And then whatever maybe new tool that we did at the EO level or the one we did the quarter before that maybe I hopefully practice for 3 months before I roll it out.
And you might refresh that a little bit, like just go over it again.
Yeah.
I think one of the I'm getting more into my specific, I wouldn't call them goals, but like efforts that I'm going to really, push on myself is the idea of a really novel concept, servant leadership. But as we the reason I say that is as we feel like we are narrowing focus a little more in the larger departments and clarifying those roles. I think servant leadership is such a big topic, and I've never been one to, really latch on to those people that say, my whole philosophy is servant leadership and this is how I execute on that. It's kind of like, okay, that's like a tagline.
Yeah.
More or less, like fundamentally, we all should be acting that way, acting as a servant leader. But what I mean is my focus for this year is all about that support given.
Yeah.
And the reason I feel like now is a great time to reset that and really harp on how can I serve them is because we've basically put ourselves at the EO level in positions to be more strategic and have more time to just work with our people instead of saying, Katie, you're going to do a project and it's due by next Friday and you're doing the work. We're trying to free ourselves up so we can really understand the people that we're leading, what they're doing, and and making sure they have the resources and right strategy behind executing it.
Yes.
You know,
I mean, the key is, think about it. When a boat goes off course by 1 degree, or a plane during their trip, from the beginning of the trip to the end of the destination, you can end up thousands of miles off.
Right.
Somebody has to be keeping it on course.
Right.
And if we aren't paying attention to that and guiding it, then nobody will.
Right.
And so that is a huge thing to pay attention to as our teams are growing, as we're expanding, so we have to keep a pulse on steering the course.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And it fits with what you were talking about, communication and clarity, alignment, all those things. The more time you have to spend with the people that you're leading, that's organic.
Yes.
The communication.
Yep.
Oh, I heard this. I need to maybe talk to somebody else about that. Or I'm fully engaged in what my team's goals are, and I can constantly support them in
Right.
their efforts
Well,
and truly know.
Creates the feedback loop that's intended through EOS. Not only are we, having cascading messages coming out of our meetings and the meetings that we're having with our teams, the cascading goes up and down.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's bringing them messaging back to the EO room so that we are all in complete alignment, making sure that we're steering everyone to that 10-year goal.
Same goal.
Same thing. Well, and, in between,
Yeah.
closer than that too, but that's kind of where, like I was saying, the course can deviate so far is over that long period of time.
Yeah.
So it's staying on it in the small moments.
Right. And recognizing when you might need help from a global standpoint, like you said, bubbling back up to EO, where my people are in a silo, they need my help in engaging the silo next to them.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever it is.
In an effort to not be so siloed.
Yes. Yeah. So what are your thoughts around growing in an uncertain market? When I say uncertain market, that's
that was
every
a quote,
year.
quote unquote,
Yes.
uncertain market. Every year's a new uncertainty.
Every year's an uncertainty in our business. But what are your thoughts around our strategy and why you and I believe we can be successful in terms of continuing to grow?
Yeah. I guess I feel very confident in our planning. I feel very confident in all of the tools that we have, like data, but we also have great people contributing their knowledge base and experience when making decisions. And that really starts with land. So I'm feeling more and more confident at our ability to predict. And so if we make decisions based on, truly what happens is you make decisions based on profitability and absorption for land.
Yeah.
And I'm just very confident in this skill set we have to be able to make good decisions like that.
Yeah, we have a lot. The information is fragmented a lot more, or it's more evenly distributed than it was before.
Yes.
A lot more people are watching the metrics around land and needs, at certain times.
Yeah.
And it's not just like one person doing everything.
Exactly.
There's a lot more decentralization around that and the responsibilities that go with it. So I agree.
Yeah.
And product, right?
Well, that's the other piece then. So I feel confident about our land position. I feel confident about the product that we have to sell and the fact that we very clearly were able to lower our average sales price that we're predicting this year because of the product that we're having. That's a good thing. We want to drive that down. We want our homes to be affordable.
Yeah.
But we also want to be, making sure that more people can purchase them.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it's a strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a strategy. We're always trying to make these micro movements to serve our markets. And we know our market.
Yes.
And markets. And so we're not trying to put square peg in a round hole.
Right.
We're not saying, we're in this market and we're going to go put out product that the market doesn't want or can afford.
Right.
So we're trying to meet people where they're at the most amount of people.
Exactly.
And not be a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, we're not making deals that require deviation from our core products either.
Yeah.
You know, like that's huge. And that because it's not our market, it's not our people.
Right.
It's not, goes away from that consistent strategy.
Do you feel like as you continue to get more data on the marketing side and, you know, doing more and more deep analysis on our buyers and, you know, how those buyers fit with our product and locations, do you feel good about being able to broadcast that more to the team?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I do.
With anything, it was like we were talking about with land.
Yeah.
At some point, in a certain size company, there's one or very few people who are experts in the thing, land. There's one person in charge of going to get land in all the areas.
Yeah.
And then there's two and there's three. And in marketing, it would probably be the same thing. There's a few who would know exactly what the strategy is to get us buyers. And, you know, perhaps over time, there's just more and more education and communication. And then that integrates with sales.
That's exactly where I went with it in my head. The idea would be when you say one and then two and then three, it would be that the entire sales team would be their own expert in their micro market.
Yeah.
You know, because all of our, you know, we're targeting the same, conceptually the same market, but it is still a wide range of, you know, every community is a different target market. So to get to that point where every sales consultant understands who that buyer profile is.
Right.
Who are my people? Who am I talking to? You know, even if it's just in a newsletter on social media or when someone walks in the door.
Yeah.
That would be big goal.
Again, two-way street, right? Two-way communication. You have access to information that would be difficult for those frontline employees to have as well as they have information that would be difficult for you to gain access to.
Right.
And so
But if we both, with our powers combined, use our CRM, that goes away. Life is good.
Right, right. That sounds like it's probably a focus for you
absolutely.
in this year. And so there's, again, alignment of the vision. And, you know, we don't want we never want to have few holding the most information.
Right.
It's the most people holding as much information as possible.
Yep.
And that could even be with departments that never interact.
That
the
would
alignment is all the same, you know, basic knowledge at least.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So let's see. We do want to talk a little bit about our MVP of the week here. Did you have anyone in mind?
I have a couple, but go ahead.
Well, I would love to, in, you know, consistency. Actually, you know what? Let me rewind for a second. While we were talking before, I did want to take a moment. Yes, this is all about 2024, but I would love to celebrate the success of 2023.
That's a great idea.
Because we exceeded our goal.
Our settlements goal, yes.
Just thank you, everyone. Let's insert some sort of audio celebration here. Because that is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, we, meaning you and I, inherently are not the greatest at pausing to celebrate.
Yeah.
You know, we can move on from good, bad, and different very quickly. And so that's a good point. You know, like it's very satisfying.
Oh, yes.
It is.
Yeah.
For this 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You know?
And then it's like, that's why, you know, this is, okay, let's look at 2024. You know, that's our immediate focus is to look at what's next. But taking a second to say, we accomplished so much last year, not only in exceeding our settlements goal, but what we put in place to make all of these moves in 2024 possible. I mean, it's a huge achievement across the board.
Yeah.
The reason I'm going back to that and saying all that is because it's making it very difficult for me to choose an MVP of the week right now.
Yeah,
you know?
It is a total team effort. I mean, we've talked about a lot of different people, but, you know, in order to exceed exceed our goals, there's a ton of even last minute, last second work. And that basically revolves around like mostly regional teams.
Yes.
But really sales, settlement, customer coordinators, salespeople, sales managers, and then ultimately production.
I think it's going to have to be just based on the timing, based on the fact that we're coming off of a fantastic year. We went out with a bang. It's going to have to be celebrating that production and closing coordinator.
Right. At some
the customer
point,
coordinators.
If you jam everything in and you get it done, the ones that really got it done are the people that build the houses. And obviously, along with that, the customer coordinators for, coordinating 50 plus settlements in 1 month across the state. Yeah, that's a lot of work and stressful.
Yes. Yeah.
Other than getting people into their homes towards the middle to end of summer when people need to be in their new school district and settled and everything, there is no more stressful time than
that last
Christmas
week of the year
and New Year when you want to get somebody into their home, because we all have personal lives as well.
Yeah.
And we want to do the Christmas stuff, and the expectation from our customer, as it should be. If we said we were going to deliver that week, we're going to deliver, and we're going to do it well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure associated with that. So, yeah, I think it has to be those two groups, customer coordinators and production.
You got it.
And congratulations on exceeding the goal.
Yay.
It's very impressive.
And I'm going to do a callback to the whole point of this the podcast with the slot schedule. We're going to get you some relief next year.
Yeah.
Everybody who contributes to the consistency and sticking with the slot schedule it means you get a good Christmas.
Yes.
We get a much more consistent settlement schedule, and maybe next year won't be so stressful. Let's do it.
Yeah. That's
a
goal.
Team effort from everybody. Yeah.
Agreed.
So
yeah,
then
definitely.
The last piece of this little podcast today is a challenge. So I brought mine for right now. I would love to challenge us and anyone else who'd like to participate to start that book that you've been wanting to read. Start the book, because there's nothing better than, it doesn't matter what kind of a book it is. It can be, whatever fiction you're reading or business book or whatever you want. But there's something that changes in your brain chemistry when you read a book. And so that's my challenge.
I was going to say tickle.
Yeah.
Tickles your brain. It really does.
It does. Yeah.
It can, like you said, I've read that book by Michael Lewis over Christmas, Going Infinite.
That's the one I'm talking about for myself, because I have it sitting next to my bed and I haven't started it yet.
And it has nothing to do with me, my industry, or anything, but it just generates a lot of great creative thought when you read a good book.
Yes.
And I think that's really good. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, my challenge is, like I said, going back to the servant leadership, and I'm not going to say be a servant leader. I'm just going to say my challenge is, as a leader, what are those tangible things that I can do to support the people I'm leading?
Yeah, that's great.
Identifying, a few things that makes them feel like they're not just supported, but that they have the resources they need to do the job that I'm saying in my head that I want done.
Yes.
Go build this. What's the budget? Well, there is no budget, so just do it.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Right.
Being specific. So that's my little challenge, but I'm going to start a new book too.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Same. We'll do both. And that wraps up the first podcast of the year.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Let's go. Ding, 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 ding.